So today I am here with a video on healing, spiritual healing, and really just healing in general. Healing is so important and it's so needed in our world. One thing I do want to say is that the path to healing isn't linear, and the path looks different for everyone, of course. You know, there's ups and downs in the healing process. Sometimes you feel good, sometimes you feel bad. You know, sometimes you think you're almost there and then you find yourself starting all over again. So I think it's important to be patient with yourself and know that, you know, your path to healing is your own, but ultimately it's about getting there that matters. So I hope that this video can help anyone who is in need of healing, and here are 7 tips that can help you do so. So healing tip number 1 is allowing yourself time. It is so important to be patient with yourself. Again, the path to healing is not always linear, and most of the time it isn't. You know, you can think that you've healed, or you can actually heal from one thing and then we have another thing that reoccurs in our life, or sometimes, you know, we get triggered by certain things and it brings up these feelings that we have all over again, and that's fine. You know, the goal is to be patient with yourself, to be loving with yourself, and to allow yourself the time that you need. Healing tip number 2 is acceptance / getting out of denial. We can't heal if we deny that there's something that needs to be healed in the first place. So it's so important that we're able to come to terms with whatever has happened to us, that we're able to come to terms with the fact that we were traumatized, or that we're able to come to terms with the fact that we were hurt. And sometimes that's hard for us to do because on some level we may feel like it was our fault, or we don't want to feel like we were victimized. But it's so important for us to be able to, you know, again, come to terms with it so that we can heal from it and ultimately move forward and be as happy and as healthy as we possibly can be. Healing tip number 3 is kind of a follow-up to healing tip number 2, but it's allowing yourself to feel. My motto is you have to feel so that you can heal, and it is so true, because what happens is that when we try to avoid negative or uncomfortable feelings, all we do is suppress them. We don't get rid of them, we only suppress them, and then we end up manifesting it in our lives subconsciously in other ways. So what happens is that we get into these patterns, or we have these patterns play out in our lives, or it manifests in our, you know, behaviors, and we never really heal from it because we never allowed ourselves to feel what we, you know, needed to feel. So it is so important that you allow yourself to feel, go through all the motions that you have to go through. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, scream. Do whatever you have to so that you can heal and move forward. That is so important. Healing tip number 4 is releasing and not dwelling in your pain. After you acknowledge it, after you go through the motions, it is so important to release it and to not dwell in negative emotions. You know, it's important that we don't over-identify with the bad things that happen to us or with our trauma, because it's only a chapter of our story out of the whole book of our life. It's only a chapter and it doesn't define you. So it is so important that we release it and let it go so that we can move forward and be as happy and as healthy as we possibly can be. Healing tip number 5 is prayer. You know, you'll hear me talk about prayer a lot because I really feel that prayer is so important and it is so powerful. If you don't know how to pray, just talk to God. Literally, you can talk to God like He's your best friend, and it doesn't matter. You know that God always hears you and He feels you, especially when you come to Him and you're at your most broken or you're at your lowest. He hears you. And even if He doesn't give you what you're looking for immediately. He's going to give you it when it's time, when it's exactly right for you. Because I think that some people feel that because their prayers aren't answered immediately, or because things don't change overnight, that God isn't with them or God doesn't hear them. And that is totally not true. God is always with you, and he always, hears you when you call out to him. So always pray and always talk to God, because he will always be there for you. Healing tip number 6 is forgiving yourself and forgiving others. This one is so important. It's so important to give yourself grace. Sometimes I think we can have the tendency to blame ourselves and to think, wow, I should have been smarter. I should have been better. And while it's okay to take accountability and it's healthy on some level, it's not okay to blame yourself for, things that weren't your fault. You need to stop convincing yourself that there's something wrong with you, that you're broken. Like, for instance, if you had something that happened to you in childhood, if you were abused, if you were abandoned, if you were neglected, that isn't your fault. And the trauma that followed you throughout life isn't your fault, because it's not your fault that you were just a child, an innocent child brought into this world, and that you weren't given what you needed and deserve, the security, the love that every child needs. And because of that, you grew up to be an unhealthy, adult. That isn't your fault. So it's so important to give yourself grace, whether you put your trust in someone because, you were looking for something as human as love and someone betrayed you. It is that the lack of that person's character that is to blame. It's not you to blame. And we can always learn from things and grow, and it's so important that we look at it as that, as a growing opportunity, as a learning opportunity, instead of blaming ourselves. And on the other hand, it's important to forgive others as well. I try to look at situations like this now. When someone does something wrong to me, I try to think about everything that they may have been through, or everything that may have caused them to be how they are. And when I think of it like that, I'm able to more so give them grace. However, I think that even though it sounds generic, it's so important that we forgive people, because forgiveness is more for ourselves. There's this quote I like, that bitterness is like drinking a poison and expecting the other person, or waiting for the other person to die. Bitterness and holding on to negativity and anger and pain and hurt doesn't do anything but hurt us and keep us stagnant. And the way, I look at it is that I'm not going to allow someone that power over my life. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be good, regardless. So I think it's so important that we do forgive others, so that we can heal and be happy and healthy and whole. Healing tip number 7 is seeking help. Sometimes we just need people to talk to. So whether it's going to therapy, whether it's talking to a trusted person in your life, such as a friend or family member, or finding a support group of people who have been through similar experiences, it is so important that we find people who we can talk to and express ourselves to, so that we're not suppressing things in and keeping them to ourselves, because that's not healthy for us. So with that being said, those are my 7 healing tips. I hope that it can help someone. Remember that God loves you. You are amazing, beautiful, special, and wonderful. Until the next video.